You can't do this to me!
I'm sorry. I'm tired of suffering with you. I didn't come to this life to suffer.
Mommy, please.
Don't leave us.
Mommy.
On the day she walked out of that house, she didn't just leave her husband behind. She left 6 innocent children crying at the door. "I didn't come to this life to suffer," she said, as she stepped into a car that wasn't her husband's own. That was the last time they saw her. Or at least that's what they thought, because 15 years later, she came back. But this time, everything had changed. But before I tell you what happened when she returned, you need to understand why she left in the first place. The rain started without warning, the way it always does in Lagos. One moment, the sky was heavy and still. The next, water was hammering the zinc rooftop of the Thompson house so hard you could not hear yourself think. It was the kind of rain that flooded roads within minutes, turned gutters into small rivers, and kept people locked inside, pressing their faces to windows and watching the dark. Inside the house on Ududua Crescent in Ikeja Phase 1, nobody was watching the rain. Nobody had the space to. The house was once beautiful. Not so long ago, Grace Thompson hosted parties here on Saturday evenings. The furniture was imported, the generator ran all night, and the smell of pepper soup drifted out to the street. David Thompson's name meant something in trading circles. Life, by any honest measure, was good. That time felt like another world now. The sofas were gone, taken 3 weeks earlier by men with a court order and flat expressions. The dining table followed the week after. What remained in the sitting room were a few plastic chairs, a small television that no longer worked, and the sound of the rain filling every corner of the empty space. David had tried. That was the truth nobody outside this house would ever fully understand. He had tried in ways that cost him sleep, weight, and the quiet confidence that used to live behind his eyes. The naira had collapsed against the dollar. His import costs had tripled. Overnight, the bank called the loan. Containers at the port were seized over documentation an officer said was incomplete. A problem that could be fixed, the officer hinted, for the right amount. David did not have the right amount. He had not had it for months. But he was still here, still waking up every morning, making calls and trying to believe something would turn. Grace had stopped believing long before tonight. Michael noticed it first. He was 16, the eldest, and he had his father's habit of watching rooms carefully before entering them. For the past 4 days, he had seen his mother moving through the house differently, quietly, too quietly, the way someone moves when they are trying not to be noticed. He had seen her open the wardrobe in the master bedroom and run her hand along her dresses. He had seen her on the phone outside, voice low, back turned. He had told himself he was imagining things. He knew, standing in the doorway of the bedroom at 8 o'clock that Thursday night, that he had not been imagining anything. His mother's big travel bag was open on the bare mattress. It was nearly full. "Mommy?" His voice came out smaller than he intended. Grace did not stop folding. She pressed a blouse flat with her palm and placed it inside the bag with a kind of careful, deliberate calm that was worse than if she had been crying. She was dressed to go out. Good dress. Handbag on her shoulder, shoes already on her feet. She had done her hair that afternoon. Michael had thought she was going to visit someone. He understood now that she was going to visit her new life, and she was not planning to come back. He called his brothers. They came the way boys come when something is badly wrong. Fast, barefoot, sleep still in the younger one's eyes. Daniel appeared behind Michael, then the twins Joshua and Caleb, pushing past each other, then Ethan, then Noah at the back, 9 years old, wearing a shirt too big for him that had once been Daniel's. They stood in the bedroom doorway and looked at their mother and the full travel bag. It was Noah who started crying first. He did not fully understand everything, but he understood the bag. He understood the shoes on her feet. He walked to her, wrapped both arms around her leg and pressed his face against her thigh. "Mommy, please," he said. Just that. Please. Grace looked down at him. Something moved across her face. A shadow, a flicker, something that was not quite nothing. Then she smoothed it away. "Move," she said quietly. "Let me pass." "Where are you going?" Joshua asked. His voice was shaking. "Don't go," Caleb said immediately after, as if they had rehearsed it. "Mommy will manage. Whatever is happening will manage. Daddy will fix it," Daniel said. He was 13, and he said it with the fierce, desperate certainty of a boy who needs to believe something true. "He always fixes things. Just give him time." Grace picked up the bag. The weight of it did not slow her down. Michael stepped into her path, not blocking her. He could not bring himself to block her, but standing close, his eyes searching her face for the mother he knew, the one who used to call him her big man and check his homework and laugh too loudly at bad jokes. "Mommy, please look at us. We are your children." "I know who you are." "Then how can you leave?" His voice finally broke. "How can you just leave us?" She looked at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was even and low and without warmth, and those words would live inside Michael Thompson for the rest of his life. "I cannot suffer in this poverty with you all. I have one life. I will not waste it on struggle." David appeared at the bedroom door. He had heard the voices. He was still wearing his work clothes from that morning, a tired collared shirt, dark trousers, the exhaustion of months written into every line of his face. He looked at his wife. He looked at the bag. He looked at his 6 sons standing there in the lamplight with wet eyes and terrified faces. And David Thompson, a man who had built a business from nothing, who had negotiated in boardrooms and stood his ground in markets and never in all his adult life begged anyone for anything, lowered himself slowly to his knees on the bare floor. "Grace," he said. His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. "Please, I am asking you, don't do this to us tonight." She stepped around him. He reached up and held the edge of her dress, not gripping, just holding. "I will turn this around," he said. "I swear to you, 6 months. Give me 6 months. Don't leave these boys without their mother." She pulled the fabric free from his hand, gently, the way you remove something that does not belong to you anymore. She walked down the corridor. The boys followed, still begging, voices overlapping, Noah dragging on her hand. The front door opened and the full violence of the Lagos rain came rushing in. The roar of it, the cold spray, the smell of red, wet earth. A black car was waiting at the gate. Noah ran out after her, barefoot, into the rain, across the wet concrete, his small feet slapping the ground. "Mommy! Mommy, wait!" She did not wait. She put the bag in the boot. She got into the passenger seat. The door closed with a sound like a full stop at the end of a sentence. Solid, final, clean. The car began to move. And then just once, for just a moment, Grace Thompson turned and looked through the rear window. She saw the gate. She saw the boys standing in the rain. She saw Noah with both arms stretched toward the car, rain running down his face. She saw David standing in the doorway with his head bowed. She saw all of it. Something moved behind her eyes, sharp, deep, real. She turned back to face the road ahead. The car turned the corner and was gone. Neighbors on both sides of the street had their curtains pulled slightly open. They had heard everything. They had seen enough. By morning, the whole street would know. By the end of the week, it would reach people who had once attended Grace Thompson's parties and eaten her pepper soup and admired her curtains and called her a wonderful woman. But none of that mattered to the 6 boys standing in the rain outside a half-empty house, learning for the first time what it felt like to be left behind. The rain kept falling long after the black car disappeared around the corner. The 6 boys stood in the open gateway, soaked through, water streaming down their faces, mixing with tears. Noah was still reaching toward the empty road, his small chest heaving with sobs that would not stop. Michael put an arm around him, but his own hand was shaking. Daniel stared at the spot where the car had been, fists tight at his sides. The twins, Joshua and Caleb, stood shoulder to shoulder, silent for once. Ethan wiped his eyes with the back of his wet sleeve and looked up at David. David had not moved from the doorway. His shoulders were bent, hands hung loose. The rain beat on him too, but he did not seem to notice. After a long minute, he turned and walked inside without a word. The boys followed, dripping water across the bare floor. The house felt bigger and colder than it had ever been. That night, nobody slept properly. Noah cried himself out on Michael's chest. Daniel sat against the wall, staring at nothing. The twins whispered to each other until their voices cracked. In the morning, the creditors came back. This time, they took the last mattress from the boys' room and the small gas cooker. The landlord knocked later that day with a notice. Rent overdue 3 months, out by end of month or court. David read the paper, folded it carefully, and put it in his pocket. He looked at his sons and said only, "We'll manage." They tried. For 6 more weeks, they stayed in the emptying Ikeja house. David sold his last watch to buy food. The boys stopped going to private lessons. Electricity was cut because bills were not paid. They used candles when the sun went down. Meals became smaller, 1 loaf of bread divided 6 ways, or boiled yam with no oil. David still went out every day, looking for work, coming back with tired eyes and empty hands. The boys helped where they could, sweeping the compound for neighbors, fetching water from the public tap down the street. But the money never stretched far enough. One afternoon, a truck came for the last things. The landlord stood by while men carried out the fridge that no longer worked anyway. The standing fan, even the curtains Grace had chosen years ago. The boys watched from the gate. When it was over, David locked the front door for the last time, handed the key to the landlord, and turned to his sons. "We have a new place," he said quietly. "It's smaller, but it's ours for now." They took 2 Okadas and a kicking a pep to Ajegule. The ride was long and hot. Nobody spoke much. When they arrived at the Face Me I Face You compound, the boys looked at the narrow corridor, the shared tap dripping slowly, the single toilet at the back with a broken door, and said nothing. The room was one small space with 1 window facing a wall, 6 thin mattresses on the floor, a kerosene stove in the corner. That was all. Hunger settled in like an extra person living with them. It started small. Breakfast was tea without milk if they were lucky. Lunch at school was often nothing. Daniel would sit through lessons with his stomach growling so loud he pressed his arm against it to muffle the sound. Dinner was garri soaked in cold water with a handful of groundnut. When groundnut finished, it was garri with salt. When salt ran low, it was just garri and water. David always said he had eaten at the motor park. The boys knew it was not true. One night, Michael cooked the last handful of rice and divided it into 7 small portions. He set the 7th aside, covered with a plate. When David came in late, tired from Okada rides, he saw the plate and paused. He did not ask whose it was. He just sat down, ate his tiny share, and looked at Michael with eyes that said everything without words. Michael never mentioned it. Neither did David. School was its own kind of suffering. The public school they attended was overcrowded and underfunded, with cracked walls and benches shared by 3 students at a time. The teachers were tired. The system was broken. Most days, surviving the classroom had less to do with learning and more to do with knowing who to avoid. Daniel could not avoid them. He was 13, thin, and quiet. Exactly the kind of boy that certain other boys decided was safe to target. It started with words, insults thrown across the classroom designed to land in front of an audience, about his father, about his family's fall from Ikeja to Ajegunle, about his mother. That was the worst part, the mother part. Your mama left because she saw how useless your papa is, a boy named Festus said one afternoon, loud enough for the whole class to hear. She was smarter than all of you. Some people laughed. Some looked away. Nobody defended Daniel. He sat very still and stared at his book and did not respond. Inside, something tightened in his chest, a knot that would take years to fully loosen. One day, they pushed Daniel against the wall during break, tore pages from his exercise book and scattered them on the ground. "Abandoned boy," they chanted. "Your mama ran away. Abandoned boy." That was the name they had given him, given to all his brothers. It spread. Even boys from other classes knew it. Daniel did not fight back. He picked up his papers, walked to the tap, washed his face, and went back to class. Daniel never told his father. He never told Michael. He swallowed every bit of it, came home each afternoon, washed his face at the shared tap, and sat down to study. If they thought poverty had broken his family, he would become the proof that it had not. He would be so good at school, so sharp and so capable that one day none of this would matter. That was all he had. He held it tightly. The twins, Joshua and Caleb, argued more now, short, sharp words over who got the bigger piece of bread or whose turn it was to sell recharge cards. But when things got too quiet, they would sit together and plan. Ethan kept the room tidy and made sure Noah drank water. Noah still woke up sometimes calling "Mommy" in his sleep. Michael would hold him until he settled. One evening, after a bad day, David had come home only with 200 naira from Okada fares. The boys gathered around him on the floor. David looked at them, eyes red from dust and tiredness. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm trying." Michael spoke first. "You are a rock, Dad. We know you are trying. We are trying too." Nobody talked about Grace that night. They rarely did. She had become like a wound they had all agreed, without saying so, not to press on. What they had instead, what they were building instead, was something smaller and quieter and harder to name. They had each other. They had their father. They had peace and unity among them. They had the zeal and passion to break out from their condition, and that was all that mattered. The turning point, the small, quiet one, came through a borrowed phone and a cyber cafe on Warehouse Road. Michael discovered it first. A cyber cafe that offered 1 hour of Wi-Fi for 50 naira if you bought a sachet of water from the owner. He went after school on a Tuesday, sat in front of a slow desktop computer, and typed the words "how to make money online" into a search engine. What came back changed everything. He started watching YouTube tutorials about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, charts, wallets, how it worked, how people traded it, what it meant when charts moved up and down. He did not understand all of it immediately. He came back the next day and the day after that. He took notes in the back pages of his school notebook, the ones meant for rough work. He soon told the others. Soon they had a routine. After school, they took turns at the cyber cafe or on a borrowed phone from a neighbor. NEPA would cut power by 8 or 9. They lit the torch, propped it against the wall, and huddled close. Michael studied crypto charts, heart racing when a coin moved up even a little. Daniel, who had a mind that processed logic faster than anyone in the room, started watching software development tutorials, Python, basic web design, free courses on platforms that loaded slowly but loaded. The twins, Joshua and Caleb, found forex trading and immediately turned it into a competition between themselves, arguing over signals and charts in the small room late into the night. Ethan gravitated toward blockchain. Something about the architecture of it fascinated him. The way a system could be trustless, decentralized, built to hold without a center. Noah was too young to trade, but he started reading about land and property, printing out pages at the cyber cafe when he had the coins, building a small folder of things he did not yet have words for, but knew he wanted to understand. Some nights the internet failed, some nights they wasted airtime on wrong videos. Frustration came, slammed phones, quiet courses, but they kept going. One evening, Michael showed them his first small crypto wallet with a few dollars from a free airdrop. It was tiny, but it was real. The room felt different that night. Not safe yet, not rich, but possible. They still ate Gary. They still had taunts at school. They still missed their mother in quiet moments. But in the torchlight, 6 boys and their father leaned together, refusing to give up. The alert came at 7:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. David's old Nokia phone, the one he still used because it lasted forever on one charge, buzzed once on the kerosene stove. He was stirring the last pot of Gary for the night. The boys were scattered around the room. Michael scrolling charts on a borrowed phone. Daniel typing code on a cracked screen. The twins arguing over a forex signal. Ethan reading a blockchain PDF. Noah asleep with his real estate notes open on his chest. David picked up the phone, looked at the screen, and froze. The message was from the bank. Credit alert, 12,850,000 naira. Ref, advance payment supply contract. He read it again, then a third time. Michael noticed the shock on his face first. Dad? David turned the phone toward them. No words at first. He just held it out like proof that needed to be seen by more than one pair of eyes. This story isn't over yet. Part 2 drops soon. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss it.